to start with reading something from the Word Biblical Commentary, if you'll allow me.
You really? What's this thing? What's this new thing about the Word? All of a sudden,
it's got some interesting insights.
What's this thing where you're going to them for the commentary? What is that about? I mean, you shocked me when you did that a couple times.
It's actually a really good commentary.
I know it is. Actually, Dr. Moster told me about it. Yeah, you
did
Word Biblical.
Okay.
But let me ask you.
Well, it takes a philological approach, which I appreciate, meaning it's looking at linguistics and history and archaeology.
Okay.
Now, it then will insert its theology, right? But you don't have to accept the theology.
Exactly.
It actually separates those out.
Yep.
So here it says, it's on verse 17, do not think that I came, presupposes the existence of the opinion that is denied. So in other words, why would Yeshua say, do not think that I came to do X, Y, Z? Because there were people who thought that he came to do away with X, Y, Z. And so why would anybody think that? So let's discuss that. So I'm going to read on with the Word Biblical Commentary. Now, bear in mind that part of this is an evangelical, you might even call fundamentalist commentary, but part of it is part of, how do I put this, higher criticism. We talked about lower criticism, which is textual criticism. Higher criticism is what they call the top half of the page, and it deals with, okay, who wrote these things and why? And it presupposes that what's written is not divinely inspired or not the Word of God. So I'm only going to read it not because I'm presenting that opinion, or I'm not because I'm presenting that as my opinion. This is what Word Biblical Commentary says, okay? He says, although it is unlikely that we are it is unlikely that we are to suppose that, like James, Matthew here opposes Paul, or an explicitly Pauline group. In other words, the assumption of the Word Biblical Commentary is that according to Paul, Yeshua did away with the Torah. He abolished the Torah. And according to the Word Biblical Commentary, James was opposed to this and upheld the Torah. In other words, it's arguing, and not just arguing, it's taking it as a given that there was a split in the early church between James, who said the Torah still stood, and Paul, who said the Torah was abolished. And so therefore, perhaps they projected the words into the mouth of Yeshua against Paul in order to say, do not think that I have come to do away with the Torah and the prophets. I've came not to do away with, to fulfill. That was a Jamesian idea contrary to Paul, okay? Now, they don't accept that explanation, but they bring up that explanation, which is maintained by other scholars. In other words, there's many scholars out there, very serious, learned scholars, who say that these words were fashioned in order to oppose what Paul was teaching and say, you know what, Paul? Yeshua himself said that he did not come to do with what you claimed he did. Now, I'm not saying that Paul did away with the Torah, right? I'm saying this is what they're saying, what these scholars are saying, what these Christian scholars are saying. And the Word Biblical Commentary mentions that as a possibility, but then kind of rejects it because they don't, they don't believe that there was a split really maybe between Paul and James, I guess, at least the author of this part of the commentary. He says, here it is fair to assume that Jesus' sovereign interpretation of the law was so out of step with contemporary interpretation, e.g. the Pharisees, that it seemed to many that Jesus was going against the law. In other words, they now say, no, when he said the Torah and the prophets, he didn't mean the Torah and the prophets. He meant the rabbinical interpretation of the Torah and the prophets. And according to the Word Biblical Commentary, he's saying, look, don't think I came to do away with the Torah and the prophets, even though I'm opposed to the rabbis.